Kevin Bell's heart raced as he stepped off the interstellar shuttle onto the alien soil of Akamar 3. The 22-year-old human ambassador had been warned about the Akamarians' extreme aversion to physical contact, but nothing could have prepared him for the palpable tension that filled the air. As he surveyed the welcoming committee, he noticed their rigid postures and the generous space they maintained between each other. The fate of humanity's alliance against the aggressive Borgan Empire rested on Kevin's shoulders. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the crucial nature of this diplomatic mission. The Akamarians, a cautious humanoid species, were potential key allies in the looming conflict. Their advanced technology and strategic position in the galaxy made them invaluable partners, if only Kevin could overcome their deeply ingrained isolationism. As Kevin approached the Akamarian dignitaries, he observed their visible discomfort. Their eyes darted nervously, tracking his every movement as if he were a loaded weapon. He had been briefed on the rare genetic condition that afflicted their species, causing severe pain upon skin-to-skin contact with other beings. This physiological quirk had shaped their entire culture, leading to a society that prized personal space above all else. The welcome ceremony proceeded with careful choreography, each movement designed to maintain a safe distance between all participants. Kevin followed the intricate dance of diplomacy, acutely aware of the consequences should he make a misstep. However, fate had other plans. As the ceremony concluded, Kevin turned to leave the dais. In that moment, his elbow brushed against the arm of a young Akamarian woman. Time seemed to stop as everyone held their breath, waiting for the inevitable cry of pain. But it never came. Instead, the woman's eyes widened in shock. I felt no pain, she whispered, her voice a mix of confusion and wonder. Only a pleasant tingling. Chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward, creating a barrier between Kevin and the young woman. Kevin learned her name was Merrick, the 20-year-old daughter of the Akamarian High Council leader. As quickly as the connection had been made, it was severed. Kevin found himself whisked away to a secure chamber, his mind reeling from the implications of what had just occurred. Hours passed as Kevin sat in isolation, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily upon him. Outside his quarters, he could hear the frantic discussions of Akamarian scientists and politicians. Words like contamination and espionage floated through the air, sending a chill down his spine. Finally, the door opened. An Akamarian scientist entered, maintaining a careful distance. "Mr. Bell," he began, his voice a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Our initial tests have revealed something extraordinary. Your unique human physiology appears to neutralize our touch sensitivity. This is unprecedented." Kevin's mind raced with the possibilities. Could this be the key to securing the alliance? Or would it only serve to further isolate him from the very people he needed to convince? As the scientist continued to explain the findings, Kevin's thoughts turned to Merrick. The brief moment they had shared had sparked something, a connection that transcended the physical barriers that had defined Akamarian society for generations. He couldn't help but wonder if she was experiencing the same tumult of emotions that now coursed through him. Outside, the news of Kevin's ability spread like wildfire, igniting a powder keg of conflicting reactions among the Akamarian population. Some saw it as a miracle, a potential cure for their species' isolation. Others viewed it as a threat to their very way of life. As Kevin grappled with the weight of his newfound role in Akamarian society, a greater threat loomed on the horizon. The Borgan Empire, ever watchful, had caught wind of the unrest on Akamar 3. Seeing the planet's instability as an opportunity, they began to accelerate their plans for attack. Time was running out. Kevin knew he had to find a way to navigate the complex Akamarian political landscape, protect Merrick, and secure the alliance, all while coming to terms with his growing feelings for her and the universe-altering implications of their unique connection. The fate of two worlds now rested in the hands of the only human boy who dared to get close to an alien girl, and the shocking discovery that followed. Kevin's mind whirled as he stood before the Akamarian High Council, acutely aware of the weight of expectation pressing down upon him. The circular chamber buzzed with tension, council members shifting uneasily in their seats, their eyes fixed on the human ambassador. "Mr. Bell," intoned High Counselor Zorn, his voice echoing through the room, You stand before us as both a potential savior and a possible threat. We demand an explanation for this phenomenon." Kevin took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Honorable Counsel, I assure you that I am as surprised by this development as you are. I came here seeking an alliance between our peoples, not to upend your society." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Zoran's eyes narrowed. "Words are easily spoken, Mr. Bell. We require proof." Kevin nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. He approached the semicircle of council members, each visibly tense as he drew near. With careful movements, he extended his hand towards the nearest Acamarian, a stern-faced woman with silvery hair. As their fingers brushed, the woman's eyes widened in shock. "By the stars," she gasped. "It's true. No pain, only a pleasant tingling." One by one, Kevin repeated the process with other council members, each contact eliciting similar reactions of wonder and disbelief. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of excited whispers and fearful muttering. Zoran raised a hand, silencing the room. "This requires further investigation. Mr. Bell, you will submit to a full scientific examination. Until then, you are to remain in your quarters under guard." As Kevin was escorted out, he caught a glimpse of Merrick in the gallery, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Hours later, Kevin paced in his quarters, the gravity of his situation weighing heavily on him. A soft knock at the door broke his reverie. To his surprise, Merrick stood in the doorway, her lithe form silhouetted by the dim corridor lights. "Merrick, what are you doing here?" Kevin whispered, ushering her inside. She glanced nervously over her shoulder. "I convinced the guards to let me in. I told them it was for more tests." Her eyes met his, filled with dedication. "But the truth is, I needed to see you again, to understand." As they talked, Kevin noticed something strange. The longer they remained in contact, the clearer Merrick's speech became, as if the barriers of language were melting away. "You feel it too?" Merrick asked, her accent fading with each word. Kevin nodded, amazed. "It's like I can see into your mind, understand your culture." Their conversation flowed freely, covering topics from the intricacies of Acamarian social structures to the nuances of Earth's diverse cultures. Hours passed like minutes, the two lost in a world of shared understanding. Outside, the situation on Acamar 3rd was rapidly deteriorating. Crowds gathered in the streets, their chants echoing through the city. "Give us the cure," some shouted, while others cried, "Protect our way of life." In the High Council chambers, Zoran struggled to maintain order as reports of unrest flooded in. "We must act decisively," he declared to his fellow council members. "This human's presence threatens to tear our society apart." At that moment, Kevin was brought before the council once more. Seeing the chaos unfolding around him, he stepped forward. "High Counselor, members of the council, I have a proposal." All eyes turned to him as Kevin outlined his plan for a controlled study. "Let us approach this scientifically," he urged. "A small group of volunteers, carefully monitored. We can explore the effects of my touch on your people while managing the risks." The council chamber erupted into heated debate. Some saw wisdom in Kevin's words, while others recoiled at the idea of further contamination. Finally, Zoran raised his hand for silence. "We will allow this study," he declared, his voice heavy with reluctance. "But under the strictest conditions. At the first sign of danger, it will be terminated immediately." As preparations for the study began, Kevin received an encrypted message from Earth. His heart sank as he read the contents, instructing him to leverage his unique ability to secure the alliance against the Borgan Empire. Kevin's determination was tested as he watched Dr. Lyra, the lead Acamarian scientist, set up the equipment for the first round of tests. Her movements were precise, but he could see the apprehension in her eyes. "Dr. Lyra," Kevin began, "I understand your concerns. I want you to know that I'm committed to the safety and well-being of your people." Lyra paused, studying him intently. "Your words are appreciated, Mr. Bell, but understand that we are venturing into unknown territory. The long-term effects of your touch on our physiology are yet to be determined." As the first volunteers arrived, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking a tightrope. On one side, his duty to Earth and the looming threat of the Borgan Empire. On the other, the fragile trust of the Acamarians and his growing feelings for Merrick. Unknown to Kevin and the Acamarians, a shadow moved through the corridors of the research facility. Kraz, the Borgan spy, blended seamlessly with the security detail, his eyes constantly searching, ears always listening. Each new piece of information about Kevin's ability was carefully cataloged and transmitted back to his superiors. As the initial results of the study emerged, showing the temporary neutralization of the Acamarians' touch sensitivity, the atmosphere on the planet shifted dramatically. News spread like wildfire, despite efforts to contain it. Kevin watched as the participants experienced physical contact with each other for the first time, their faces a mixture of joy and trepidation. The sight filled him with a sense of purpose, but also dread as he considered the potential consequences of his actions. Outside the facility, the division among the Acamarians grew more pronounced. Some hailed Kevin as a miracle worker, the key to ending their isolation. Others saw him as a harbinger of doom, threatening to destroy millennia of Acamarian culture. As night fell over the capital city, Kevin stood at the window of his quarters, watching the distant flickers of protest fires. The weight of two worlds rested on his shoulders, and he knew that his next moves would shape the fate of both humanity and the Acamarians. In the shadows of the city, Kraz smiled to himself as he composed his latest report to the Borgan Empire. The pieces were falling into place, and soon Akamar III would be ripe for the taking. As Kraz transmitted his latest report to the Borgan Empire, the seeds of chaos he had carefully planted began to bear fruit. The streets of Akamar III's capital erupted in a cacophony of angry voices and frantic movement. A sea of protesters surged towards the research facility, their faces contorted with fear and rage. At the head of the mob, Vex, a charismatic Acamarian politician, raised his fist to the sky. "Brothers and sisters," he bellowed, his voice carrying over the din, "we must put an end to this madness. The human's touch threatens everything we hold dear." The crowd roared in response, their collective fury building like a tidal wave. They pressed against the facility's security perimeter, the outer barriers groaning under the pressure of countless bodies. Inside the research center, Kevin and Dr. Lyra huddled over a holographic display, their faces bathed in its soft blue glow. The genetic data before them told a story that was both miraculous and terrifying. "Do you see this sequence here?" Dr. Lyra pointed to a spiraling strand of Acamarian DNA. "Your prolonged touch has begun to alter it at the molecular level." Kevin leaned in, his eyes wide. "What does that mean for your people?" Dr. Lyra's voice trembled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "It means we may have found a permanent cure for our touch sensitivity, but the implications, they're staggering. We're talking about fundamentally changing what it means to be Acamarian." Before Kevin could respond, an alarm blared through the facility. Security feeds flickered to life on nearby screens, showing the chaos unfolding outside. The outer perimeter had been breached, and Vex's followers were pouring into the compound. "We need to evacuate," Kevin said, his mind racing. "Where's the nearest exit?" Dr. Lyra shook her head, panic creeping into her voice. "They've cut off all the main routes. We're trapped." As if in response to her words, the facility's security systems began to fail one by one. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie red glow. In the midst of the chaos, a familiar figure appeared on one of the security feeds. Marek, her face set with drive, was making her way through a service entrance, evading the rioters outside. Kevin's heart leapt. "It's Marek! She must know another way out!" As if hearing his words, Marek's voice crackled over the facility's communication system. "Kevin, Dr. Lyra, can you hear me? There's a network of maintenance tunnels beneath the facility. I can guide you to safety, but you need to move now." Following Marek's instructions, Kevin and Dr. Lyra led the test subjects through dimly lit passages, the sounds of the riot growing fainter with each step. The air grew thick and musty as they descended deeper into the bowels of the facility. Suddenly, a tremor shook the tunnel. Dust and debris rained down on them as the structure groaned ominously. "The rioters must have breached the main power core," Dr. Lyra gasped between coughs. These tunnels won't hold much longer. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with Merrick, her eyes wide with relief. "Thank the stars you're alive," she breathed, embracing Kevin without hesitation. Their moment of reunion was short-lived. A section of the tunnel behind them collapsed, cutting them off from the rest of the group. Kevin and Merrick found themselves separated from Dr. Lyra and the others, forced to take refuge in a small storage closet as the facility continued to crumble around them. In the confined space, their bodies pressed close together, Kevin and Merrick experienced a sudden, intense deepening of their mental connection. Thoughts and emotions flowed between them like a river, unbound by the constraints of spoken language. Kevin saw flashes of Merrick's childhood, felt the weight of her responsibilities as a council member's daughter. He sensed her inner turmoil, torn between duty to her people and her growing feelings for him. Merrick, in turn, was flooded with Kevin's memories of Earth, the vibrant colors of a sunset over the ocean, the cacophony of a bustling city, the warmth of a family gathering. She felt his fierce tenacity to protect both his home planet and Akamar III from the looming Borgan threat. As their minds intertwined, a shared understanding blossomed between them. Their connection transcended physical touch, becoming something deeper, more profound. "We need to stop this," Merrick whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant sounds of destruction. "My people are tearing themselves apart, and the Borgans are taking advantage of our weakness." Kevin nodded, his willpower strengthening. "We need to show them the truth. Both sides need to understand what's really at stake." As they formulated a plan, neither of them noticed the shadow that passed by their hiding place. Kraz, the Borgan spy, smiled to himself as he intercepted a transmission meant for the Akamarian High Council. The chaos he had orchestrated was about to enter its final, devastating phase. High above Akamar III, hidden from the planet's defensive systems, a Borgan stealth ship slipped into orbit. Commander Draz stood on the bridge, his reptilian features set in a cold smile as he watched the planet's cities erupt in civil unrest. "Prepare the landing party," he ordered, his voice a low hiss. "It's time to claim our prize." As the Borgan commandos prepared for their covert insertion, Kevin and Merrick emerged from their hiding place, their faces set with newfound purpose. They had a plan, but time was running out. The fate of two worlds now hung in the balance, and the true battle for Akamar III was about to begin. The true battle for Akamar III was about to take an unexpected turn. As Kevin and Merrick emerged from their hiding place, they were met with a scene of utter chaos. The streets were filled with panicked Akamarians, some fleeing, others engaged in heated arguments. But something was different. Kevin noticed that many of the Akamarians were touching each other without recoiling in pain. "Merrick, look," Kevin said, pointing to a group of Akamarians embracing each other. "What's happening?" Merrick's eyes widened in shock. "It's spreading. The effect of your touch, it's not just limited to those you've directly contacted." Before they could process this new development, Dr. Lyra's voice crackled over their communication devices. "Kevin, Merrick, you need to get to the emergency council chamber immediately. We have a situation." They rushed through the city, dodging debris and avoiding pockets of conflict. As they ran, Kevin couldn't help but notice the increasing number of Akamarians who seemed unaffected by touch. Some looked elated, while others appeared terrified of this sudden change. Upon reaching the emergency council chamber, they found Dr. Lyra hunched over a holographic display, her face etched with concern. "The genetic alterations caused by Kevin's touch," she began without preamble, "they're spreading rapidly through our population. It's being transmitted through casual contact between those who have been cured and those who haven't." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Council members argued vehemently, some seeing this as a miracle, others as an extinction-level threat to their way of life. Zoran raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Lyra, what are the long-term implications of this change?" Dr. Lyra's voice trembled slightly as she responded. "For some Akamarians, particularly those with prolonged exposure to Kevin, the changes are becoming permanent. We're looking at a potential fundamental shift in our physiology, and by extension, our entire society." The weight of this revelation settled heavily on the room. Kevin felt a mix of guilt and grit wash over him. He had come to Akamar III to forge an alliance, not to irreversibly alter an entire species. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Security feeds flickered to life, showing scenes of destruction across the city. Reptilian figures moved with military precision, their advanced weapons laying waste to Akamarian defenses. "The Borgans!" Merrick gasped. "They're here!" Commander Draz's face appeared on the main screen, his cold reptilian eyes gleaming with triumph. "Akamarians, your planet is now under Borgan control. Surrender the human, Kevin Bell, and we may show mercy." The chamber descended into chaos once more. Kevin's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. He caught Merrick's eye, and in that moment, their mental connection deepened once again. An idea formed between them, born from their shared understanding. "We can use this to our advantage," Kevin said, his voice cutting through the din. "The genetic changes, they're not just removing your touch sensitivity, they're enhancing your abilities, allowing for greater coordination and teamwork." Merrick nodded, catching onto his train of thought. "We can fight back. For the first time in our history, we can engage in close-quarters combat without fear." Vex, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. "I was wrong about you, human. I see now that change isn't something to be feared, but embraced. Let me help." With Vex's support, a plan quickly took shape. They would lure the Borgan commandos into an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. There, a force of newly cured Akamarians would lie in wait, ready to ambush the invaders. As they prepared for battle, Kevin worked closely with Dr. Lyra to refine the process of genetic alteration. Volunteers came forward, willing to undergo the change to defend their home. Merrick took charge of organizing the troops, her natural leadership abilities shining through in the crisis. The trap was set. A false transmission was sent, indicating Kevin's location in the industrial complex. As night fell, the Borgan forces approached, their weapons at the ready. The battle that ensued was unlike anything Akamar III had ever seen. The Akamarian fighters moved with unprecedented coordination, their newfound ability to touch allowing for complex maneuvers and teamwork. The Borgans, caught off guard by this unexpected resistance, found themselves outmatched despite their superior technology. In the midst of the chaos, Kevin spotted a familiar face. Kraz, the Borgan spy, was making his way towards him, a deadly energy weapon raised. Before Kevin could react, Myrick appeared as if from nowhere, engaging Kraz in hand-to-hand combat. The fight was intense, with Myrick utilizing her new abilities to full effect. Her movements were fluid and precise, no longer hindered by the fear of painful touch. With a final, decisive blow, she subdued Kraz, securing him for interrogation. As the tide of battle turned in their favor, a new threat emerged. Commander Draz, realizing he had been outmaneuvered, activated a hidden Borgan superweapon. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble as an ominous hum filled the air. Kevin recognized the technology from Earth's previous encounters with the Borgan Empire. "It's a tectonic destabilizer," he shouted over the growing rumble. "If we don't stop it, it'll tear the planet apart." Dr. Lyra's voice came through their communication devices. "Kevin, I've been analyzing the data from our volunteers. The genetic alterations aren't just removing touch sensitivity, they're enhancing neural synchronization. If we could get enough altered Akamarians working in perfect harmony, we might be able to generate a counterfield." It was a desperate plan, but it was their only hope. As tremors shook the planet, Kevin and Merrick raced back to the city center. They needed to convince the High Council to approve a mass alteration, a decision that would change Akamarian society forever. The emergency council session that followed was heated and fraught with tension. Kevin and Merrick made impassioned pleas, arguing that embracing change was the only way to secure a future for Akamar III. As the debate raged on, the ground beneath them continued to shake. Time was running out. The fate of an entire world hung in the balance, awaiting a decision that would alter the course of Akamarian civilization forever. The ground trembled beneath their feet as Kevin and Merrick rushed back to the emergency council chamber. The decision to approve mass genetic alteration hung in the balance, but a new complication arose as they burst through the doors. Dr. Lyra's holographic image flickered urgently above the central table. "Council members, We have a situation. The genetic alterations are spreading faster than anticipated, and they're having unexpected effects. Kevin watched as several Acamarians in the room touched each other without pain, their expressions a mix of wonder and fear. One council member lifted a heavy metal chair with surprising ease, while another stumbled, suddenly overwhelmed by heightened sensory input. "What's happening to them?" Merrick asked, her voice tinged with concern. Dr. Lyra's fingers flew over unseen controls. The alterations are interacting with a dormant gene in Acamarian DNA. It's triggering a rapid evolutionary process, a natural defense mechanism awakened by the introduction of human genetic material. The chamber erupted into chaos as council members argued, some embracing the changes while others recoiled in horror. Zoran raised his hands for silence. "Dr. Lyra, what are the implications of this evolution?" "Enhanced physical abilities, heightened senses," Dr. Lyra explained, "but also temporary lapses in touch sensitivity. It's unpredictable and potentially dangerous." A violent tremor shook the building, reminding everyone of the immediate threat. Kevin stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. "We don't have time to debate. The Borgen superweapon is tearing the planet apart. We need to act now." Merrick nodded, her eyes meeting Kevin's. "I'll lead a team of altered Acamarians to the weapon's location. We'll use our new abilities to neutralize it." "I'll come with you," Kevin said without hesitation. As they prepared to leave, Vex approached them. "I was wrong about you, human. Let me help. I'll organize a defense of the council chambers in case the Borgens attack." Kevin clasped Vex's shoulder, a gesture that would have been impossible days ago. "Thank you, Vex. We'll need everyone working together to survive this." They moved swiftly through the city, gathering a team of altered Acamarians along the way. The streets were a maze of obstacles, collapsed buildings, gaping fissures in the ground, and pockets of loyalist Acamarians who still opposed the changes. As they neared the location of the Borgen superweapon, Kevin's heart sank. The device towered before them, a pulsing mass of alien technology. Energy arced from its core, disappearing into the ground. "It's drawing power from the planet's core," Kevin realized aloud. "We can't destroy it conventionally." Merrick's brow furrowed as she surveyed the scene. "What do we do?" Kevin's mind raced, analyzing the energy patterns. "We need to create a feedback loop in the energy field. If we can overload it—" "Is that even possible?" an Acamarian volunteer asked. "With your enhanced abilities, yes," Kevin nodded. "But it's risky. We'll need perfect coordination." As they began to position themselves around the device, a distant explosion rocked the ground. Merrick's communicator crackled to life with Vex's voice. "Merrick, Commander Draz survived. He's launched a counterattack on the council chambers. We're holding them off, but we need reinforcements." Merrick's face paled, but she steeled herself. "We have to focus on the weapon. Vex, hold out as long as you can." Kevin placed a hand on her shoulder, their mental connection deepening. "We can do this, Merrick. Together." They began their attempt to overload the Borgen superweapon. Marek acted as a conduit, using her connection with Kevin to synchronize the group's efforts. The air crackled with energy as the altered Acamarians pushed their new abilities to the limit. The strain was immense. Several Acamarians collapsed from exhaustion, while others struggled to control their powers. Kevin felt his own body burning with effort as he stabilized the process, preventing a catastrophic failure. Suddenly, the energy field began to fluctuate wildly. Massive earthquakes rippled across the planet's surface. Kevin's eyes widened in horror as he realized their mistake. "Stop!" he shouted. "The weapon's too powerful. If we destroy it, the explosion could take out the entire planet." The team disengaged, panting and shaken. Merrick looked at Kevin, her eyes filled with fear and perseverance. "What now?" Kevin's mind raced. "We need to use the weapon's energy against itself. Create a planetary shield to protect Akamar Threed from the explosion." "That would require even more altered Acamarians," Merrick said, understanding dawning on her face. Kevin nodded grimly. "And it's even riskier than before." Without hesitation, Merrick activated her communicator, broadcasting planet-wide. "People of Akamar Threed, this is Merrick. Our world stands on the brink of destruction. We need volunteers to undergo genetic alteration and help save our planet. The risk is great, but the alternative is annihilation. Please come to the Central Plaza. Together, we can secure our future. As they waited, Kevin's communicator beeped with an incoming transmission. Dr. Lyra's face appeared, her expression grave. Kevin, we have another problem. A Borgen fleet has just entered the system. They'll be in range to attack in less than an hour. Kevin shared a look with Marique. The stakes had just gotten even higher. They had one chance to save Akamar III and potentially turn the tide against the Borgen Empire. As volunteers began to pour into the Central Plaza, Kevin and Marek prepared for the most ambitious and dangerous feat in Akamarian history. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and time was running out. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and time was rapidly slipping away. As Kevin and Marek raced to implement their daring plan, the ground beneath their feet shuddered violently. Buildings swayed and fissures opened in the streets, spewing noxious gases from deep within the planet's core. The Borgen superweapon's energy field was wreaking havoc on Akamar III's tectonic stability. "We need to hurry," Kevin shouted over the cacophony of alarms and crumbling infrastructure. "The planet's breaking apart faster than we anticipated." Marek nodded grimly, her eyes scanning the horizon as they made their way to the Central Plaza. Already, streams of Akamarians were converging on the location, responding to her planet-wide appeal. Dr. Lyra's holographic image flickered to life on Kevin's wrist communicator. "Kevin, we've refined the alteration process. We can handle the influx of volunteers, but there's something you need to know." "What is it?" Kevin asked, his breath coming in short gasps as they navigated the chaotic streets. "The dormant gene we activated, it's expressing itself in ways we couldn't have predicted. Some of the altered Akamarians are developing energy manipulation abilities." Kevin's eyes widened. "That could change everything. We might be able to redirect the weapon's power more effectively." As they reached the plaza, Kevin was struck by the sight of thousands of Akamarians queuing up for the genetic alteration. Fear and dedication mingled on their faces as they stepped forward, willing to risk everything to save their world. Marek squeezed Kevin's hand, her touch no longer causing pain, but instead sending a surge of shared purpose through their mental connection. "We can do this," she said softly. Suddenly, the sky lit up with a barrage of energy weapons. The Borgen fleet had launched its first assault. Orbital defense platforms, hastily outfitted with reverse-engineered Borgen tech, sprang to life, returning fire in a dazzling display of light and destruction. "We're out of time," Kevin muttered, his mind racing. He turned to address the crowd, his voice amplified by emergency broadcast systems. "Listen carefully. Those of you with energy manipulation abilities, we need you to form a network around the planet. You'll be redirecting the weapon's power into a protective shield." As he spoke, Dr. Lyra and her team worked feverishly, processing volunteers and monitoring the effects of the alterations. The air crackled with energy as newly altered Akamarians tested their abilities, some lifting heavy objects with ease, others creating small force fields with a wave of their hands. Kevin coordinated with Marek, using their telepathic bond to guide the volunteers into position. The strain was immense and many collapsed from exhaustion or sensory overload. But for every Akamarian who fell, two more stepped up to take their place. In the capital, Vex led a desperate defense against Commander Draz's forces. The Borgen commander had launched a daring raid on the research facility, intent on sabotaging the Akamarians' efforts and stealing data on human Akamarian genetic compatibility. "Hold the line," Vex roared, his voice carrying over the din of battle. Altered and unaltered Akamarians fought side by side, their newfound abilities evening the odds against the technologically superior Borgen troops. An explosion rocked the research facility, and Vex saw Draz himself leading a squad of elite soldiers towards the main entrance. With a grim smile, Vex charged forward, his enhanced strength allowing him to leap impossible distances and engage the Borgen commander directly. As the battle raged in the capital, Kevin and Marek focused on coordinating the global network of energy-manipulating Akamarians. The strain was evident on their faces as they guided the volunteers through the complex process of energy redirection. "Something's wrong," Marek gasped, her eyes unfocused, as she processed the feedback from the network. "The weapon's energy field, it's collapsing in on itself." Kevin's blood ran cold as he realized the implications. It's creating a singularity. We have minutes before it tears the planet apart. At that moment, Zorn approached them, his body radiating with newfound power. I've assembled a team of our strongest energy manipulators. We'll contain the collapsing field while you complete the shield. Kevin nodded, knowing the immense risk Zorn and his team were taking. Go and good luck. As Zorn's team raced to the site of the Borgen weapon, Kevin and Merrick redoubled their efforts. The entire planet seemed to vibrate with the combined power of thousands of altered Acamarians. In orbit, the Borgen fleet intensified its attack, sensing the Acamarians were on the verge of a breakthrough. We're losing cohesion in the southern hemisphere, Merrick called out, her voice strained. The shield is destabilizing. Kevin felt despair creeping in, but he pushed it aside. He reached out through the network, feeling the fatigue and fear of the Acamarian volunteers. Everyone, listen to me, he broadcast through their mental link. I know you're tired. I know you're scared, but you're capable of more than you know. Reach deep inside yourselves. Find that untapped potential and let it flow. As if in response to his words, a surge of power emanated from the Acamarian volunteers. The dormant gene, fully awakened by the stress of the situation, unlocked a new level of ability in the altered Acamarians. The shield snapped into place, a shimmering barrier of energy enveloping the entire planet. Just as it stabilized, the Borgen superweapon reached critical mass. The resulting explosion was like nothing Kevin had ever seen. A blinding flash of light engulfed everything, and for a moment he feared they had failed. But as the light faded and the dust settled, he realized the shield had held. Acamar III was saved. But the victory came at a cost. The explosion had bathed the planet in a wave of energy that affected every Acamarian, altered and unaltered alike. As Kevin helped Merrick to her feet, he surveyed the changed landscape of Acamar III. What now? Merrick asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kevin shook his head, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the Borgen fleet still loomed. I don't know, but whatever comes next, we'll face it together. As they stood there, exhausted but alive, Kevin knew that nothing would ever be the same. Not for the Acamarian people, not for Earth, and certainly not for the balance of power in the galaxy. The real challenges were just beginning. As the blinding light faded and the dust settled, Kevin helped Merrick to her feet. They surveyed the changed landscape of Acamar III, the shimmering energy shield still visible in the atmosphere above them. We did it, Merrick whispered, her voice filled with awe and exhaustion. Kevin nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the remnants of the Borgen fleet still loomed. For now, but I have a feeling this is just the beginning. Over the next few days, reports flooded in from across the planet. The energy wave from the contained explosion had triggered widespread genetic changes throughout the Acamarian population. Kevin watched in amazement as Acamarians who had never undergone the alteration process began manifesting abilities similar to those who had volunteered. Dr. Lyra, her lab coat singed and her hair disheveled from the attack on her research facility, approached Kevin and Merrick with a datapad in hand. The changes are unprecedented, she explained, her eyes wide with excitement and trepidation. It seems the dormant gene has been activated in nearly every Acamarian on the planet. What does this mean for our people? Merrick asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Dr. Lyra tapped her datapad, bringing up a holographic display of Acamarian DNA. It means we're evolving, and fast. The most startling development is this. She pointed to a specific sequence. We can now withstand physical contact, not just with humans, but with each other. Kevin's eyes widened as he processed the implications. Centuries of isolation ended in a matter of days. Marek reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against Dr. Lyra's arm. Both women gasped, not in pain, but in shock at the simple touch. Tears welled in Marek's eyes as she turned to Kevin, embracing him fully for the first time without the barrier of his unique physiology between them. As they worked tirelessly to coordinate relief efforts and assess the damage, reports came in from around the planet. The capital had been spared the worst, thanks to Vex's valiant defense, but other regions faced significant challenges. In the southern continent, massive sinkholes had opened up, swallowing entire neighborhoods. To the east, forests crackled with uncontrolled energy as Akamarians struggled to contain their new abilities. Kevin stood before the High Council, now led by Zoran, who had survived his dangerous mission to contain the weapon's energy field. "We need help," Kevin stated plainly. "Earth has resources and experience that could be invaluable in this transition." Zoran nodded gravely. "Agreed. We hereby formally request an alliance with Earth. Will you act as our ambassador, Kevin?" "Of course," Kevin replied, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. As Kevin began the process of establishing a mutual defense pact with Earth, Marek took charge of organizing the newly empowered Akamarians. She set up training centers in every major city, working with those who had first undergone the alteration to teach others how to control their abilities. In one such center, Marek stood before a group of anxious Akamarians. "Focus on the energy within you," she instructed, her voice calm and reassuring. "Visualize it as a stream, flowing through your body." A young Akamarian woman held out her hand, her face scrunched in concentration. Slowly, a small orb of energy formed above her palm. Her eyes widened in delight, but then the orb expanded rapidly, threatening to burst out of control. Marek stepped forward, placing her hand over the woman's. "Breathe," she said softly. "You control the energy, not the other way around." Together, they guided the energy back into a stable form. Meanwhile, Vex had become a symbol of unity for the Akamarian people. He moved through the crowds in the capital, shaking hands and offering words of encouragement to those who had once opposed any form of touch or alteration. "We are one people now," Vex declared to a gathering in the central plaza. "Our differences made us strong, but our unity will make us unbreakable." As the Akamarians adjusted to their new reality, Kevin found himself at the center of their rapidly evolving culture. His unique physiology, which had once set him apart, now served as a stabilizing influence on their altered genetics. In Dr. Lyra's lab, Kevin sat patiently as she ran a series of tests. "Fascinating," she murmured, examining the results. "Your genetic structure seems to act as a template, helping to stabilize the more volatile aspects of our new abilities." Kevin flexed his hand, watching as small arcs of energy danced between his fingers. "I feel more connected to everyone," he said. "It's like I can sense the entire population of the planet." Dr. Lyra nodded. "Your bond with our people, especially Marek, has deepened significantly. This could be crucial in the days to come." Those days came sooner than anyone had hoped. Long-range scans detected a massive Borgan fleet assembling at the edge of the system. The High Council convened an emergency session, with Kevin and Marek in attendance. Zoran's holographic image flickered as he addressed the Council from the orbital defense station. "The Borgans view us as an even greater threat now. We must prepare for a full-scale invasion." As the Council debated strategy, Kevin received an urgent communication from Earth. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen, her expression grave. "Kevin, we've authorized a full humanitarian and military aid package for Akamar III, but we need you back on Earth to finalize the alliance and coordinate our response." Kevin looked at Marek, feeling a pang of reluctance at the thought of leaving her and the Akamarians at such a crucial time. She squeezed his hand, understanding passing between them without words. "I'll leave immediately," Kevin told Admiral Chen, "but we need to work fast. The Borgans won't wait for diplomacy." As Kevin prepared for his journey back to Earth, he stood with Marek on the balcony of the High Council chambers, overlooking the bustling city below. The signs of recent battle were still visible, but so too was the incredible resilience of the Akamarian people. "I don't want to leave," Kevin admitted, turning to face Marek. She smiled softly, placing a hand on his cheek. "You're not leaving. Not really. Our bond transcends distance now, and our people need the alliance you can secure." Kevin nodded, leaning into her touch. "I'll be back as soon as I can. We have a war to prepare for." As Kevin's ship lifted off from the Akamarian capital, Marek watched from the ground, their telepathic connection humming with shared emotion and purpose. In orbit, the remnants of the Borgan fleet lurked at the system's edge, a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. On the bridge of his ship, Kevin looked back at the shimmering, blue-green world of Akamar III, now forever changed by his arrival and the events that followed. As he prepared to make the jump to hyperspace, A priority alert flashed on his console. Borgen scout ships had been detected, probing the outer defenses of the Akamarian system. Kevin's teeth clenched as he opened a channel to Earth. The real battle was about to begin, and he had no intention of missing it. Kevin's ship emerged from hyperspace, the blue-green orb of Akamar III filling his view screen. He exhaled slowly, his hands trembling slightly as he guided the vessel towards the planet's atmosphere. The last few weeks on Earth had been a whirlwind of diplomatic negotiations and strategic planning, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight that greeted him as he descended through the clouds. The Akamarian capital sprawled below, a vibrant tapestry of life and activity that bore little resemblance to the isolated, touch-averse society he had first encountered. Streets bustled with people, their hands brushing against each other without fear or hesitation. In the central plaza, a group of Akamarians practiced energy manipulation techniques, multicolored orbs of light dancing between their outstretched palms. As Kevin's ship touched down on the landing pad, he saw a welcoming committee approaching. Zoran and Vex stood at the forefront, their faces a mixture of relief and concern. Kevin disembarked, the formal alliance agreement tucked securely under his arm. "Welcome back, my friend," Zoran said, clasping Kevin's hand firmly. "We have much to discuss." Vex nodded gravely. "Our long-range sensors have detected increased Borgen activity at the edges of the system. We fear an invasion may be imminent." Kevin's face hardened. "Then we'd better make this alliance official. Earth is ready to stand with Akamar III. They made their way to the High Council chambers, where Kevin presented the alliance proposal. The council members listened intently, their faces a mix of hope and tenacity. As the last words were read and the document signed, a palpable sense of relief washed over the room. "This marks a new era for both our peoples," Zoran declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Together, we stand a chance against the Borgen threat." No sooner had the words left his mouth than the doors burst open. Merrick strode in, her eyes immediately locking with Kevin's. Without hesitation, she crossed the room and embraced him, their telepathic bond surging to life with an intensity that left them both breathless. "I felt you the moment you entered the system," Merrick whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Kevin held her tightly, marveling at the ease with which they now touched. "I missed you," he said simply, the words inadequate to express the depth of his feelings. Their reunion was cut short by the arrival of Dr. Lyra, her eyes alight with excitement. "Kevin, I've made a breakthrough in my genetic research. I need you in the lab immediately." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Kevin worked closely with Merrick and the human military advisors, integrating Earth's combat tactics with the Akamarians' new abilities. In Dr. Lyra's lab, he volunteered for a series of experiments that revealed his unique physiology could temporarily boost the abilities of nearby Akamarians. "It's like you're a catalyst," Dr. Lyra explained, reviewing the data on her holographic display. "Your presence amplifies their energy manipulation skills. This could be a game-changer in combat situations." As Kevin absorbed this new information, an alarm blared through the facility. They rushed to the command center where Vex was studying a holographic map of the Akamarian system. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive Borgen fleet entering the outer reaches of our system," Vex reported, his voice grim. "Hundreds of warships and troop transports. We're vastly outnumbered." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Then Vex's eyes lit up with a dangerous glint. "But we have something they don't," he said, gesturing to the assembled Akamarians. "Our new abilities. We can create a network of energy fields throughout the system, disrupting their propulsion and weapon systems." Kevin nodded slowly, his mind racing. "It's risky, but it might be our best shot. We'll need to coordinate thousands of Akamarians across the entire planet." "I can handle that," Merrick said, stepping forward. "We've been training for weeks. Our people are ready." Over the next few days, Kevin and Merrick worked tirelessly to implement Vex's strategy. They established command centers across Akamar III, each responsible for coordinating a sector of the energy field network. The human military advisors set up early warning systems and tactical communications, ensuring rapid response to Borgen movements. As the Borgen fleet advanced, the first skirmishes broke out in the outer regions of the system. Kevin watched from the central command center as holographic representations of Akamarian defense ships engaged Borgen scouts. The battles were fierce, with the Akamarians showing flashes of brilliance tempered by their inexperience in large-scale space combat. "We need more firepower," Kevin muttered, reaching for the communication console to contact Earth. But as he activated the system, a burst of static filled the air. "Powerful jamming signal detected," a technician reported. "It's coming from the Borgen fleet. All long-range communications are down." Kevin's heart sank as he realized they were cut off from Earth, facing an imminent full-scale invasion with only the resources at hand. He turned to Merrick, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. "We stand together," she said firmly, not just to Kevin, but to all assembled in the command center. Akamarians and humans, united against the Borgen threat. As if in response to her words, alarms blared throughout the facility. The main view screen lit up with multiple red indicators as Commander Draz, leader of the Borgen invasion force, initiated a multi-pronged attack on Akamar III. "Orbital bombardment detected," an officer shouted. "Borgen dropships deploying ground forces." "Activate the defense grid," Kevin ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around him. Marek closed her eyes, reaching out through the planet-wide network of Akamarians. "Energy field activating. Now!" The view screen showed a shimmering barrier materializing around Akamar III, extending into the surrounding space. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Several Borgen ships experienced sudden system failures, colliding with each other in brilliant explosions. But the victory was short-lived. The Borgens quickly adapted, using specialized equipment to detect weak points in the field and concentrate their firepower on these areas. "They're breaking through in Sector 7, an officer reported. "Ground forces have established a beachhead." Kevin turned to Merrick, their eyes meeting in silent communication. They both knew that the true test was only beginning. As alarms blared and reports of Borgen advances flooded in, they prepared to lead the defense of Akamar III against the full might of the Borgen Empire. The fate of the planet, and potentially the balance of power in the galaxy, hung in the balance as the battle for Akamar III began in earnest. The skies above Akamar III blazed with the exchange of weapons fire as Borgen ships pressed their advantage, exploiting weaknesses in the planetary defense grid. Kevin gripped the edge of the command console, his fist clenched as he watched another section of the energy field flicker and fail. "We're losing ground," Vex reported, his voice tight with tension. "The Borgens are adapting faster than we can reinforce the grid." Merrick's eyes met Kevin's, a silent understanding passing between them. "We need a new strategy," she said. "Something they won't expect." Kevin nodded, his mind racing. "What if we take the fight to them? A strike team, using my ability to amplify your powers. We could target their command ships, disrupt their coordination." Merrick's eyes lit up. "It's risky, but it might be our best shot. I can assemble a team of our most skilled energy manipulators." As Merrick began selecting candidates for the strike team, alerts blared across the command center. Vex's face hardened as he studied the tactical display. "Borgen ground forces have established multiple beachheads. They're pushing towards the major population centers." Kevin placed a hand on Vex's shoulder. "Can you lead the ground defense? Your experience will be crucial." Vex nodded grimly. "I'll show these invaders what Akamarians are truly capable of now." As Vex departed to organize the ground forces, Kevin and Merrick focused on preparing their strike team. They retrofitted a squadron of Akamarian ships with experimental shielding designed to withstand Borgen weapons fire. The chosen energy manipulators underwent intensive training, pushing their abilities to new limits under Kevin's amplifying influence. In the midst of their preparations, Dr. Lyra's face appeared on the main view screen, her eyes wide with excitement. "Kevin, Merrick, I've made a breakthrough. Our new abilities can be supercharged by exposure to a specific electromagnetic frequency. It's temporary, but the power boost is significant." Kevin's pulse quickened. "Can you send us the specifications? We'll incorporate it into our plan." As they integrated Dr. Lyra's discovery into their strategy, a priority alert cut through the chaos of the command center. Commander Draz's face appeared on the screen, his Borgen features twisted in a sneer. Acamarians, your resistance is futile, Draz growled. Witness the power of the Borgan Empire. The transmission cut out, replaced by a view of a massive Borgan warship approaching the planet. Energy readings spiked off the charts as the vessel began powering up a familiar-looking weapon. It's a scaled-down version of the superweapon, Merrick gasped. If it fires, our entire defense grid will collapse. Kevin's heart made. Then we have no choice. We launch now. Within minutes, Kevin, Merrick, and their strike team were aboard their ships, racing through the atmosphere towards the orbiting Borgan fleet. As they broke through the cloud cover, the scale of the battle became apparent. Hundreds of Borgan ships swarmed around the planet, exchanging fire with the outnumbered Acamarian defenders. Strike team, form up, Kevin commanded over the comm. Remember your training. We're targeting Draz's flagship. Stay close to maximize the amplification effect. As they approached the Borgan fleet, enemy fighters swarmed towards them. Kevin felt the familiar surge of energy as his presence boosted the abilities of the Acamarians around him. Merrick, flying beside him, unleashed a burst of energy that scattered the first wave of Borgan ships. Push through, Kevin shouted as they plunged deeper into the heart of the enemy formation. Acamarian energy manipulators created shields, launched projectiles, and disrupted Borgan systems with unprecedented power. On the planet's surface, Vex led the ground defense against the Borgan landing parties. The transformed Acamarians fought with a ferocity that surprised even themselves, using their newfound abilities to devastating effect. Vex created an energy barrier that deflected a barrage of Borgan artillery, then retaliated with a wave of force that sent enemy troops flying. In the capital city, Zoran gathered a group of elder Acamarians. Our people need us, he said, his voice carrying the weight of generations. Together, we can reinforce the defense grid. The elders formed a circle, channeling their energy into a complex manipulation technique. Across the planet, the failing energy field stabilized, buying precious time for the defenders. Back in space, Kevin and Merrick's strike team fought their way closer to Draz's flagship. The massive vessel loomed before them, its weapon powering up with ominous intensity. We're taking heavy fire, one of the strike team members called out. Shields failing. Kevin grit his teeth. Push harder, we're almost there. As they approached the flagship, a new threat emerged. Commander Draz, encased in advanced Borgan battle armor, led a squad of elite troops to repel the attackers. Energy weapons and physical blows were exchanged in a furious close-quarters battle on the exterior of the warship. Kevin found himself back-to-back with Merrick, deflecting Borgan attacks while she unleashed bursts of energy. Their bond allowed them to move in perfect synchronization, covering each other's weaknesses and amplifying their strengths. Merrick, remember Dr. Lyra's frequency? Kevin shouted over the din of battle. Use it now! Merrick closed her eyes for a brief moment, tuning her energy to the specific electromagnetic frequency. When her eyes snapped open, they blazed with an intensity Kevin had never seen before. She thrust her hands forward, and a massive surge of energy erupted from her palms. The blast caught Draz full in the chest, overloading his armor's systems and sending him tumbling back. More importantly, it breached the hull of the flagship, creating an opening for the strike team. Inside now, Kevin ordered, leading the charge into the ship's interior. They fought their way through corridors filled with panicked Borgan crew members, making their way towards the central power core where the superweapon was housed. Alarms blared throughout the ship as they reached the core. The superweapon's energy matrix pulsed with barely held back power, ready to unleash devastation on Akamar Thurja. We need to overload it, Merrick said, her voice strained from the exertion of the battle. If we combine our abilities, amplified by your presence and the electromagnetic frequency, we might be able to create a cascade reaction. Kevin nodded, understanding the unspoken risk. Such an explosion would likely destroy a significant portion of the Borgan fleet, but it would also put their own lives in grave danger. As they began to work on sabotaging the superweapon, the sound of approaching Borgan reinforcements echoed through the ship. Kevin and Merrick shared a look, both knowing that their time was running out. They had a choice to make: attempt to escape and leave the job unfinished, or stay to ensure the complete destruction of the superweapon. possibly at the cost of their own lives. The fate of Akamar III, and perhaps the entire human Akamarian alliance, hung in the balance as Kevin and Merrick stood before the pulsing heart of the Borg superweapon, the future uncertain. Kevin and Merrick locked eyes, their telepathic bond humming with shared persistence. Without a word, they knew what had to be done. They would stay, finish the job, and face whatever consequences came. "Let's do this," Kevin said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Marek nodded, her hands already glowing with energy. Together. They turned to the pulsing heart of the superweapon, its raw power thrumming through the air. Kevin placed his hands on Marek's shoulders, feeling the familiar surge as his amplification ability kicked in. Marek's energy output doubled, then tripled, her entire body now radiating with almost unchecked power. "Now!" Kevin shouted. Marek thrust her hands forward, unleashing a torrent of energy into the weapon's core. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Alarms blared as the energy matrix began to destabilize, its carefully calibrated systems spiraling out of control. "It's working!" Marek yelled over the din of failing machinery and explosions. "But we need to contain the blast." Kevin concentrated, pushing his amplification ability to its limits. Marek's hands moved in intricate patterns, weaving a cocoon of energy around them. The air shimmered and crackled as the protective bubble took shape, just as the first massive explosion rocked the flagship. Outside, the battle for Akamar III reached its crescendo. Vex led a charge against a Borg stronghold, his troops emboldened by the sight of the enemy flagship going dark. Energy blasts and physical strikes sent Borg soldiers flying as the Akamarians pressed their advantage. "Push forward!" Vex roared, deflecting a barrage of enemy fire with a wave of his hand. "We take back our world today." In the capital city, Zoran and his circle of elders stood atop the highest tower, their combined powers feeding the planetary shield. Sweat beaded on their brows as they fought to maintain the barrier against the onslaught of Borg fire. "Hold steady," Zoran urged, his voice strained but unwavering. "Our people depend on us." Aboard Draz's flagship, Kevin and Merrick clung to each other as the ship disintegrated around them. Their energy bubble held, but barely, as the superweapon's meltdown reached its peak. "Kevin," Merrick said, her eyes meeting his, "if we don't make it—" He squeezed her hand. "We will, I promise." The world went white as the flagship exploded, the blast rippling outward through space. Borg ships caught in the radius were vaporized instantly, while others spun out of control, their systems fried by the electromagnetic pulse. On the planet's surface, the defenders watched in awe as the sky lit up with the force of the explosion. The planetary shield flickered but held, dispersing most of the blast's energy harmlessly into space. Vex, standing atop a captured Borg tank, raised his fist in triumph. "Victory!" he shouted, his voice echoed by thousands of Akamarian troops. As the light faded and the dust settled, the remaining Borg ships turned tail and fled, their formation in tatters. Cheers erupted across Akamar III as the people realized the tide had turned. But the celebrations were muted in the command center, where Dr. Lyra frantically scanned the debris field for any sign of Kevin and Merrick. "Anything?" Zoran asked, his voice heavy with concern. Dr. Lyra shook her head, her eyes never leaving the displays. "The energy readings are off the charts. It's unlikely anyone could have survived that." Hours passed as search and rescue teams combed through the wreckage. Hope dwindled with each passing minute. Dr. Lyra was about to call off the search when a faint blip appeared on her scanner. "Wait!" she exclaimed, adjusting the controls. "I'm picking up a weak energy signature. It matches the frequency of Kevin and Merrick's abilities." A rescue ship was dispatched immediately. As they approached the coordinates, the crew gasped at the sight before them. Floating amidst twisted metal and shattered hull plates was a gently pulsing sphere of energy. "We found them," the rescue team leader reported. "They're unconscious but alive." As Kevin and Merrick were rushed to a medical facility, news of their survival spread like wildfire. The streets of Akamar III's cities erupted in joyous celebration, with humans and Akamarians alike embracing in the streets. Days later, Kevin awoke in a hospital bed, his body aching but very much alive. He turned his head to see Marek in the adjacent bed, her eyes fluttering open. "We did it," he said, his voice hoarse. Marek smiled weakly, never doubted us for a second. As they recovered, the full impact of their actions became clear. The Borgan Empire's expansion had been halted, their fleet in tatters. Akamar III stood as a beacon of hope for other worlds threatened by Borgan aggression. In the weeks that followed, Kevin found himself in meeting after meeting with the Akamarian High Council and Earth's diplomatic corps. The discussions were long and complex, but the outcome was clear. A new era of cooperation between humans and Akamarians was dawning. "Ambassador Reeves," one of the Earth diplomats said, sliding a datapad across the table. "That's your new title, if you accept." Kevin looked at the offer, then at the faces around him. He thought of all he and Marek had been through, of the unique connection he now had with this world. "I accept," he said, feeling the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. Across the city, Marek stood before a group of young Akamarians, their eyes wide with admiration. "The power we've discovered within ourselves is a great responsibility," she said. "It's up to us to use it wisely, to defend our world and help others." As she spoke, Marek could feel the changes in herself and her people. The battle had awakened something in them, a potential they were only beginning to understand. She knew that guiding this evolution would be her life's work. Later that evening, Kevin and Marek stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. The streets below bustled with activity as humans and Akamarians worked side by side to rebuild. "It's beautiful," Marek said, gesturing to the scene before them. Kevin nodded, then reached out and took her hand. The simple touch, once impossible, now felt as natural as breathing. "It's just the beginning," he said, his eyes turning to the stars above. As they stood there, hands clasped and gazes lifted to the cosmos, both Kevin and Marek knew that their journey was just the beginning. The bond between them and between their peoples would be tested in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But for now, in this moment of hard-won peace, they allowed themselves to simply be. The future stretched out before them, vast and unknown, full of challenges and possibilities, and they would face it together.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.